that I'm blessed. It's a few L's and millions, so turn that loss to a...
All right, dude, we're finally doing it.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here, man. So we've gotten to know each other a little bit over the last, couple years, year and a half since we've been in this space. And I think I didn't know why, but when I first met you, I was like, I like this guy, but I'm not sure why I like him yet. and then as we've gotten to know each other, I think there's a lot of similarities in our belief systems. And, you know, I was super impressed when I heard about your just your longevity regimen and making a change. I think that that's really, really hard for people to do. And so we'll kind of talk about all of it and get into it a little bit. But I guess just tell people who you are and a little bit about you.
Okay. My name is Michael Westman, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. My wife and I migrated out here in 1991. We've been married for 33 years, been together for 38 years. I have 3 beautiful children, Samantha, Rachel, and Jared. They're all doing very well. No thanks to me, but their mom is amazing. A professional woman, CPA, partner, CEO, CFO. She's run the gamut. And they get their smarts from her. They get their, I would say, dexterity from me. Sports, you know, and everything else. They all played sports, and they all have professional careers. My daughter Sam is a trauma nurse.
Okay.
My daughter Rachel is a dentist. Okay. And my son is an engineer for a big outfit that is working at SpaceX right now.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. So that must be exciting for him.
The legacy, that's what it is for me. I am very proud of my children, but I am also very proud of my wife and I for raising children with morals, values, and very strong beliefs.
I want to dive into that a little bit. First of all, congratulations on, you said 38 years or
38 years together.
38 years together. So what's your secret?
I goof around a lot. I kid around and say it's just selective hearing.
You know, that's funny. I remember hearing a woman talk about how sometimes it makes sense to be hard of hearing.
Yes.
Yeah.
But my wife thinks I'm going deaf. I'm able to look at her. She'll probably kill me for saying this, but I'm able to look at her and tune her out because it's not registering what at that moment of what she's saying to me. But it's not that I'm not listening or not, you know. But you get to hear that chatter so much, you're able to tune it out. But that's not what clicks for Nadine and I. Same upbringing, same family background. We wanted to do better than our parents did for our kids. We didn't want to have kids in Brooklyn. You know what I mean? So when we came out here, we fell in love with Colorado and went back to Brooklyn. And we were living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Queens. She was working for a big 8 accounting firm, and I was working as an engineer at the United Nations. And we got back to it. And she said to me, "What did you think about Colorado?" Because we came out here for 2 weeks. You know, I had an aunt and uncle who lived out here. And she goes, "What do you think about Colorado?" I was like, "It's beautiful." She goes, "What do you think about moving there?" I was like, we've been dating for 6 years. We weren't even married. So July 4th, 1991, we went down to Jamaica, hung out for 2 weeks, got married. In November 91, we moved to Colorado.
In Jamaica, you got married?
Yeah.
No kidding.
In couples.
Wow, man.
We hung out there for 2 weeks. We got married with 11 other couples.
Wow.
And we stood up for a couple that Pat and Dave that we're still friends with to this day. And
how cool is that?
Yeah. And they have kids and, you know, just doing life.
You know, I feel like there's a lot of, like our youth, right, is there's sort of become this philosophy that, you know, maybe marriage isn't the best approach to life anymore, right? I think that it gets talked about a lot where, you know, hey, let's just
commingle.
Yeah, like it's okay to not be with one person and,
monogamy,
you know, and there's all the reasons why, right? But for myself personally, I look at marriage as something that's sacred, and I think that the dynamic that my wife and I have is really important to us. You know, we both understand our role within the marriage, as for ourselves individually and as a couple, and we support that. Right.
Yes.
It's sort of the philosophy of, and this is very traditional, right? And I know that this is not super popular, but for us, it's like, you know, I look at her every day going, thank you so much for everything you do. Because without you doing what you do with the kids and the house, there's no way I could come out and run a business and try to conquer the world. Right. And she says right back to me, hey, it's really thank you for doing what you do, because if you didn't go out and run a business, I wouldn't be able to be here and raise our kids. And so there's just sort of this mutual gratitude and admiration for each other. And that's really helped with our marriage. But, you know, we've only been married 7 years now. And so
that's still a long time now in this day and age.
And it is. But, you know, when you met 38 years ago, how did you guys meet? Was it through the or you were working at the United Nations?
No, I met Nadine in the neighborhood.
In the neighborhood?
Yeah.
Okay.
I used to see her in the park hanging out with her group of friends, and I had my group of friends. And, you know, me being an idiot that
was
I
it
was.
love at first sight or
Yes.
what? Yeah.
I saw her.
For both of you or just for you?
No, just for me. Just
You're
for
like, man, she is hot.
She is so freaking cute, my wife.
Wow.
And she's only 4'8". So
That sounds
believe
like mine.
it or not, when I used to see Nadine hanging out in the park, you know, I would ride up to her on my bike, and I was like, damn, you're cute. When you grow up, I'm going to take you out. She'd be like, screw you, idiot. Get away from me. But then, you know, we got to talking. We had mutual friends, and we got to talking, and we just had a lot in common. And it just blossomed from there. One night hanging out together, and we've been inseparable ever since.
What if she was sitting here right now? What do you think she would say about like what it was that eventually got her to open up and fall in love with you?
She thought I was an asshole. I was supposed to be the rebound.
And she liked that? She liked the bad boy
she liked
thing?
the cockiness about me. She always says it to this day now. And I was supposed to be the rebound boyfriend, because she dated somebody for a couple of years and never really grew with him or anything, and then dumped him and went out with me, and been together ever since.
You know, you said something else earlier too about, you know, how you were proud of you and Nadine of having raised your kids with strong morals, ethics, values. Talk a little bit about that, because I know that that's been something very important for us. And so we have come up with, I took my wife out on a date night. We go on Friday night dates. Every Friday I take her out. We have the kids are watched. It's just her and I. We turn off our cell phones, and we said, you know what, this Friday, let's sit down and come up with our core family values. We think it's really important. Now, this was about a year ago, and we're already looking at those core family values going, we need to revise them, right? Because we're feeling more
threatened every day by society and what's going on. Are these right for us? Is this the right path we want to take with our kids? And I say you just stick to it. Whatever you and your wife believe, because my daughter Samantha, she's a trauma nurse. She's married. She married a Vietnamese gentleman, Justin, and we love him. He treats her the way they're married, and they have their own home. They're doing their own thing in life. My daughter Rachel's married to a wonderful engineer like me, Michael, and they have just brought us a grandson. Gave us a grandson.
Yeah.
And my son's still trying to find his way in life. He's 22. He lives in my basement, but he does his own thing. He's a gym rat. He goes to school. He works, So I'm waiting for him to meet somebody, and then that'll open up a whole different world dynamic for him, because he's been burned twice, with girls that he thought, could possibly be interested in him. And, but he's like, Dad, you have no idea what it's like to date now in this day and age, when the number one girl jobs of girls is fans only or only fans and stuff like that. He goes, there's so much crap out there. You know what I mean? So he just started recently going back to church with us and everything. And, you know, he had some pretty big trauma in his life in the last year of high school where his best friend was killed and hated the world. You know what I mean? So he's dealing with some issues with that. But my daughter Samantha, great life, doing the right thing. Rachel, I just can't believe how, you know, but I can, because my wife is very straightforward about doing things the right way. They all had, you know, bank accounts. They, due to the savviness of my wife, they all were able to, I don't know, mature in different, you know, in ways that we thought they should. Instead of letting the school raise them, we raised them.
That's
You know
awesome.
what I mean?
What were some of those core values that you instilled? And like, did you also have traditions? And, you know, like if you were to think back and go, okay, well, was it intentional at the time, or was it just who you were and who your wife was that sort of they caught on to
Yes.
that?
My wife and I are very traditional.
Okay.
We eat at home. We don't go out that much.
Okay.
You know what I mean? We cook. You know, I cook. She cooks. We're always together. The kids see us together. You know what I mean? When dating and everything, we were always involved in who they were seeing. And, you know, I used to always say, hey, you need to bring them here. You know, I want to meet them and everything. And it kind of made them feel good about what, you know, about themselves, about they were cared for and they were loved. You know what I mean? And they have my girls have an excellent relationship with their mother. They could talk about anything and everything. And I have a good relationship with my son, you know?
You know, I think that that's so important. And it's something that we talk about a lot, right? Like we want to develop children that grow up and feel comfortable talking with us about everything. How did you develop that in them? How did you guys make them feel comfortable because I feel like in order to do that, especially as a kid, they got to really feel like you're not gonna punish them or reprimand them or judge them for what it is they come to talk to you about. Otherwise, they start to decide what they share and what they don't.
Yeah, that's where you lose them. You know what I mean? We always told them, look, we don't want you going with your friends if they've been drinking or driving, you know, driving. You call us 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't care. I'd rather you wake me up to come and get you than have the freaking cops call me and tell me you've been in an accident because the person that was driving, you know, was drinking and stuff like that. So that was one of the first rules we laid down. No judgment, just call. I don't care. And they've, you know, they did a few times call us and say, hey, I'm at a party. You know, we were going to spend the night, but, you know, I don't feel comfortable here. And we always told them, if you don't feel comfortable, call me, I'll come and get you. We drove to Greeley to pick up Rachel at a party at 4 a.m. And when we got there, the cops were surrounding the house because it was out of control.
Yeah.
It's like, get in the car, let's go. You know, even in their relationships, we told them, look, if you're having a fight with your husband or anything, we'll just come get you. Sleep it off. Don't say anything you're going to regret. And we've done that too, you know, with the girls. You know what I mean? And my wife always talked to them. She never judged them. They were always involved in sports. We went to all their sports. That's important. With Jared, basketball, baseball, lacrosse, you know, football, everything. Samantha was track. Rachel was cheerleader. We always were engaged with them. You know, we never feel like, you know, you're out there on your own. We're there. We're part of this family. And what made it different for Nadine and I was just her and I. We did it all our own. You know, we didn't have family to say, drop the kids off. And it was weird because I have 3 sisters. she had two brothers and not, aunts, uncles. They were never an influence in our children's lives. They did their, they're all back east, and we were out here on our own. And I think that for Nadine and I, made the bond. Like, we're going to do things our way with no outside influence. Sometimes I regret them being not involved with their cousins and their aunts and stuff. But we look at my sister's kids. We look at her brothers. One has passed away from alcoholism. The other one was a drug addict. He's getting help. My sisters are, third grade education. Their kids are nowhere. You know what I mean? All struggling through life. And we didn't want that for our kids. And that's basically why we made the move out here.
Interesting. What was that like for you guys, knowing that she had family that was struggling with addiction and alcoholism?
She regret. Yeah, there's a lot of regret there for Nadine. She thinks she could have done more for her brother John and been there for her brother Michael. She just lost her dad to Alzheimer's. And that was hard, And my sisters, I have a good rapport with my sisters, but it's just conversation. We don't get involved in, their lives and stuff.
Where do you think, where do you stand on, like, the whole legalization of drugs thing? Like, it's very controversial, but it just seems like more and more people are overdosing and dying from drug use. It's more acceptable to talk about having challenges with addiction. I think that so many people struggle with it, and I think it's unfortunate that a lot of people don't feel safe to be able to talk about it because they're afraid they're going to get judged. They're going to be outcast from society. This is the perception. But
dude, I grew up in the 70s and 80s. We were well medicated back then. Everybody's like, says, man, I never knew you were 62. You look like you're 50,
Yeah.
But I always kid around and say we were But drugs, they're going to be around before, after us, everything. We always told our kids, we're not telling you not to do drugs. Just be smart about it. Be aware of your surroundings. You're going to smoke a little weed. You're going to do a little blow. Just use your head. Don't ever put yourself in a precarious situation that you can't get out of. There's a lot of date rape drugs out there. My girls were always us. We always don't take a drink from anybody. All you could do is educate them. You can't not tell them don't do it because they're not going to listen to you.
Yeah. Then they want to do it because you say don't do it. Yeah.
Even more.
Yeah.
And with the legalization of marijuana and now mushrooms and all this other stuff, but it's not like when I grew up or when you grew up. Pot was pot. Now there's 150 different kinds of pot, strains of pot, and everything is so much more potent. Even, you get ups and downs and quaaludes and, all that other stuff. It's not even that anymore. You got to worry about being laced with fentanyl and killing you like that. So the whole drug scene has taken a whole different toll on our kids because it could kill them like that. You know what I mean? But
so what do you think the solution is?
I don't know, because kids are going to experiment.
Yeah.
It's peer pressure too. Their friends are dabbling in drugs. You know what I mean? You can't tell them not to do it. All you can tell them is be smart about it. If you want to do it, this could potentially be the outcome. You could die. And do you want that? Would you rather get high with your friends and lose your life? Or would you rather go to the dispensary, make sure you're getting marijuana, and because everybody's smoking marijuana now. And a lot of people now are dabbling in mushrooms because of the synthetic, the psychedelics and stuff like that. But when we grew up, it was coke, ludes, ups, downer, stuff like that. But you knew what you were getting. You go to the park, you get a nickel bag. It was weed.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now,
Now you have no idea.
Now,
just
you
have
honestly
no
don't.
idea.
And if you're willing to play Russian roulette with your life for a simple buzz, it happens every day. Kids are passing away every day.
Yeah.
Taking, all this other stuff that they think is, going to get them high, and it'll kill them like that.
How much of it do you think starts in the home versus is an environmental influence, right? Like, I feel like parents could educate their kids and talk about it openly and feel like they really have made a breakthrough with their children understanding the consequences. And yet then they're in high school and they're going to be around friends doing it. How much of that education or those conversations in the home do you think carry over into their friendships later?
My mom used to always tell me, show me who your friends are, I'll tell you what kind of person you're going to be. Because you choose to hang out with a certain group of people. And my wife got very lucky. Her mom passed away when she was 10. She had really good core friends that were all thriving for the same thing, to get ahead in life, to make a better life than what they had. And the same thing with me. We both come from really horrific backgrounds where our parents were. My mom had me when she was 14, and my sister when she was 15. Nadine had a rough life. Her father was a sanitation worker who worked nights. Her mom, worked in a diner, and she passed away at 32 years old when Nadine was 10. But that forced her. I think that flipped the switch in my wife, because her dad used to always tell her, you're not going to go to college. Why? You're just going to get pregnant and hang out. You're going to be in Brooklyn forever. And that pushed her and her friends, a good core group of friends, that said, hey, she went to a Catholic high school, college, and graduated summa cum laude. It's, top honors in her school and everything. But it put something in her to say, hey, I'm going to prove everybody wrong. Just because I have had tragedy in my life doesn't mean I have to be a part of it. You know what I mean?
Do you think she was born with that? I refer to it as the hustle, right? And it's like, and the jury's still out, right? I have an evolving opinion that changes every day on this, but it's a question I'm always really curious about. And so I'm wondering what you think. Do you think the hustle is somebody's born with it? Or do you think that it is taught? Or now maybe there's even a third option, which is maybe they're not born with it, but there was an event, a traumatic event, or something that just triggered that person to go, you know what? Fuck this.
I ain't doing it.
I'm going to show you.
I'm going to prove everybody wrong.
I don't know if you watched that Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance, I think it's on Netflix. It's one of the best I've ever seen. And it just talks about the psychology and the perspective of a winner. And not just any winner. I mean, this is Michael Jordan, right? Arguably the greatest basketball player on the planet.
Because he put the time in.
He put the time in, but they also talk about how he had this chip on his shoulder, right? And a lot of that chip came from his dad as he was growing up and younger. What do you think it is for most people? Do you think they're born with it? Do you think they learn it? Do you think it's triggered by an event?
I would say it's all a part of all three. Because Nadine always says there are wolves and sheep. You decide what you're going to be, Either you could follow, and we always told this to our kids, you could be a follower or you could be a leader. You know what I mean? Do you want to just be part of the overall group that's being herded down the street, or do you want to stand out, or do you want to make a stand for yourself? Do you want to have your own morals, beliefs, and core values? And that's where they're at. They all believe in themselves, but they don't have to prove themselves to anybody else.
Where do you think they got that from? How do you think they developed that ability to believe in themselves?
Nadine and I, we never, they came from a solid home where two people loved each other, and sure, there's going to be shit. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not always roses. You know, you've been married for 7 years, and you're going to have those peaks and valleys. But Nadine always said to her, as long as there's no infidelity and no abuse, you could get beyond everything else. But once you cross that line, there's no coming back from it. And that's, you know, you go up to it and you can make the choice if you want to go over that line. And we both never have. You know what I mean? And our kids see that. They see us together. You know, where all their friends in school are divorced, parents with, you know, you go to the dad's house, you go to the mom's house, they got new boyfriends, they got new girlfriends. And it's all a blended family now with multiple kids and everything. We never had that. And all their friends used to come to our house because we would rather see them there, you know, hanging out in our basement, playing pool, playing darts, hanging out, socializing. So we created a safe environment, not only for them, but for their friends to come in and see us as a family and hopefully learn, you know, from stuff that we, you know, we go to church. We're not the greatest Christians in the world, but we do believe. And without belief, I think you're lost.
I couldn't agree more. I think belief is really a huge key to absolutely everything in life. Everything. I think it's, and being able to have a sense of self-belief, right? Being able to mentally, and listen, for me, there have been plenty of times where I've been suicidal. I've been super depressed. You know, things haven't been going well. It's been a struggle for me at times. You know, I've ridden that roller coaster. I know what it's like on both ends of it. And, you know, looking back, I think that, you know, hope is a component of it as well. Like when you lose hope, what else is there? Right? So
You spiral.
how did, you know, finding your way back into a place where there's hope, but developing a sense of belief in yourself and what you're doing. You know, how do you create that with your kids?
My daughter Sam has an amazing heart for Jesus. She is an evangelist. She loves the Lord with all her heart. Same thing with Rachel and Michael. She got Justin, my daughter Sam. I told you, she's married to a Vietnamese gentleman.
Yeah.
Good kid. He was a Buddhist. She converted him to a Christian.
No kidding.
Because she told him, look, Justin, I really care about you. We've been dating but I can't bring children into this world without the belief of Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? That's my core value. That's my heart. That's my rock. And he got baptized.
How cool.
It was amazing.
That's awesome, man.
And Michael and Rachel go to church. You know, their family, you know, he's very religious too. I'm not saying religion, you know, because it's just a belief. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it gives you a grounding. It gives you something to look forward to and drive towards. You know what I mean? A lot of people ask me, Mike, what's different about you? I was just like, what do you mean? She goes, because you're not like everybody else. She goes, I was like, what do you mean? She goes, people that I've worked around and I go above and beyond. It's just who I am. And they always say there's something different about you. I was like, well, maybe because I believe in God and that he would want us to help. You know, that's what we're here for. You know what I mean?
It's your humanity, man.
Yeah. All of a sudden, you're no longer a Christian. You're a Christian nationalist because you won't go with what their beliefs, what they want you to believe in. So they have to label you. You know, it's really upsetting, and because a lot of people say,
Who's they?
The left.
Okay.
The left labels everybody because they're insecure. They have no morals, no values. Some of them do. My wife tells me all the time, you shouldn't judge people like that. You know what I mean? But you could definitely see the wall, you know, when you're talking to somebody that tries to tell you what you should believe, as opposed to letting you believe what you want, because that's not allowed anymore.
I think we got to get back to that.
Of
right?
course.
I think that our society has become so divided. And, listen, I don't know if that has always been the case, or if I just started paying more attention to it, or, when Trump was running in 2016, if that started to create this divide, and then it became even more pronounced. And then I think now, at least from my perspective, I think, talking to a lot of people on both sides, it's almost like everyone's kind of in the same boat with, we got to get this current president out of here, right? He's a waste of space and not doing anything good for anybody. But being able to be okay with what somebody believes in and having a healthy conversation around it, I think is so important. And, I just try to come from a place of, really understanding people, because now it's hard sometimes. If I've got somebody that's like, extreme liberal left, very like absolute in their belief, and they want to proselytize and try to convince me that what I believe isn't what I should believe and their way is the way. There are people out there like that, just like there are also people on the right
that are far right.
The same way.
Yeah.
They're far right. And, I think both are creating problems with our society. But even with those extreme viewpoints, I still find myself curious. I still find myself trying to understand, because maybe, just fucking maybe, there's something that I will learn, and maybe not. Maybe it's just going to reinforce my own belief. But giving people a sense of dignity and the ability to voice their opinion, I think, is super, super important, as long as you're not hurting somebody else. When did you start to really develop your belief with politics, I guess?
2016.
Okay.
When I voted for Trump. And when I came downstairs and my wife said Trump had won, I was like, you are freaking kidding me.
Yeah, I remember that.
I was ecstatic, because here's a man who comes from...
Nobody thought it would happen.
Nobody. But here's what. At that point was a turning point for me, because I believed in the system, that the underdog could win. Somebody that was preaching, make America great. I want to do this, I want to do that. With his financial background and everything, the country should be run by somebody that has to make it great. You know what I mean? With that financial background and everything, what he's done to, with Trump and everything, just the brand and everything, and I was really happy, and... Well,
listen, anybody that creates the level of success that Donald Trump has created...
is a threat.
They don't get there by being a complete idiot, right? That, like, regardless of the politics behind it, to develop something that had become that successful, it takes a certain type of individual to do that. And not only was he successful with his real estate, but pretty much every venture the guy ever got into, he struck gold. And so he had a track record coming into politics at a time where there was a lot of confusion, and we needed a hero.
Yeah, because everything he implemented, every policy, he got us out of the Paris Accord agreement. He did so much stuff that no other president would even dream of doing, and got us, China to pay billions in tariffs and taxes and everything, where we were being taken advantage of, but nobody had the balls to say it. And I like Trump because, he's a narcissist. He could say some really stupid shit sometimes. I wish he'd turn down the rhetoric, but I'll bet you that's what everybody in America is saying too. You know what I mean? But you can't not go and not believe in his policies and stuff.
So was it the policy that originally attracted you to him, or was it like like most people, where it's just there was just sort of this intangible, like, you know, I think there was a rally behind his, like, we're going to fucking drain the swamp.
Yep.
There's a bunch of bullshit in Washington.
Exactly.
And I'm fucking tired of it, and I don't give a fuck because I'm worth a lot of money, and I'm
Can't
going
be
to fix
bought.
it.
He couldn't be bought. And that's what pissed off a lot of people. He donated his salary of $405,000. He never took a penny while he was in office. He didn't need to. He didn't have. See, what politicians are very money-driven people. They want that legacy money, even though they're filthy, filthy rich with insider trading and all that. And he poses a threat to the society that we have in Congress and now, because they're all threatened by him. Because they know, he knows how they, you know, like he said, you don't. You know, look at the taxes of a person who came in as a millionaire. You look at the taxes of a person that going out, like Pelosi and all those other, Schumer, even Kamala Harris now. I heard her, her net worth was a couple of million before. Now it's almost 15 million.
No kidding.
How did they get that substantial wealth as a civil servant if they're not doing something that's shady?
Yeah. Well, I think they all
feel threatened by him.
This might piss a lot of people off, but there's this idea of altruism, right? And I think that probably the best president in my lifetime that sort of got the American people to rally behind this idea of being altruistic and helping your neighbor was Obama. He was an incredible diplomat, speaker, and he had the ability to communicate in a way that
he was very articulate.
He was very articulate at it.
But he was also the most divisive president in history.
I don't know. I think Trump might win the ticket for most divisive.
Well, because everybody now is against him because they labeled him as a white nationalist, all this other stuff, a racist, a bigot, a homophobe, a fascist, and everything. These people, if they say it long enough, they think it's true.
Well, I remember at the time too, they used his last name against him. Do you remember that? Where he wasn't born in the country, so he can't be the president, and they tried to tie his last name into Saddam Hussein. Yeah. But what I was going to get to earlier was that there was this idea of being altruistic, and I think that when we think about altruism and helping others and doing what's good for other people, it's a really easy platform to stand behind because who wouldn't want to help other people?
Of course.
Right? But I think there's a reality, and I think the reality is that human beings can be selfish. The way I know this is because if you look at anybody that is put into a position where you have to decide whether or not you're going to give your last dollar to your neighbor, or if you're going to keep it for yourself, if it means you and your family are going to starve and not have a place to live, most people are going to choose to protect themselves and their family. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just reality. And so I think that this notion of living your life in a way that's going to be in the best interest of other people, it's just a faulty logic that breaks down at some point, and you have to start realizing that in order to help other people, you've got to help yourself first.
And that's what I always told our kids. Self-preservation is number one. If you don't have your own house in order, how could you be able to help other people? You have to have everything in order for yourself to grow and to be able to help other people. If you keep extending yourselves, you're never going to get anywhere. Get your own house in order. And I always tell my girls, self-preservation is number one. Oh, Dad, that's ludicrous. Now as adults, now that they have the foundation, they're able to help other people.
We have a live-in nanny that helps us with the kids, and she is from Chile, which is where my wife is from, and she desperately wanted to come into the country, and she had a background in working with children in her country, but she's an amazing human being, and she really cares about other people, but she's also very intelligent. She's a hustler. And this is a woman, in my opinion, she was born with it. So even though now she's working in a capacity where, she's not making all the money in the world, in her head, she's like, I'm going to dominate, right? I'm going to create a company, or like, I'm going to do more with my life. I have the opportunity here in America to do that. She's not trying to skate the system. She's going through the proper channels to develop citizenship. However, we found out that she was sending money. So she was getting her paycheck from us, sending that money to her family in Chile that was broke and couldn't afford anything. Yeah. And which, listen, initially, I think my wife and I both thought, wow, that's really noble. And wow, like she's working her butt off and she's sending all of her money back to her family. But the more we started thinking about it, we're like, there is zero nobility in being broke. And so we sat down with her and we said, look, we're not trying to tell you what to do or pry into your personal business. But at the same time, you're coming to us telling us that you want to do more and grow a business. And, like you got to get a laptop, and a laptop now costs whatever, $1,500, and you need money for the laptop. But meanwhile, you're sending all the money to your family. Listen, charity starts in the house first. You got to take care of yourself first. It's why on an airplane, they're like, listen, don't put the mask on the person next to you until you can breathe first. Yeah. Right. And so we kind of shifted her perspective a little bit to go, you know what? You're right. We're going to, she agreed to stop sending money to her family. And it was a really, really tough phone call for her to make. She was in tears. It was very difficult. But she understood that if she doesn't focus on herself and give herself every advantage, it's fucking hard, dude. It's hard to grow a business. It's hard to make money. And so I thought that was just like a sampling of that line between altruism and what did you call it? Self-preservation.
Self-preservation.
Right? Anyway, so tell me more about the Trump. I mean, what do you think is going to happen with this election?
It's going to be pretty scary, dude. I don't know what they have up their sleeves. It's,
When you say that, you're talking about the left?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's, what they did in 2020, the proof is out there.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't even find out that the CIA killed John F. Kennedy to 60 years later. You know what I mean? How would that, how does that make the Kennedys feel, knowing that their own government assassinated the president?
I think that to me, it's like fascinating that people actually still believe that, like, how could our government would never do this? They would not, like, what are you talking about? That's all right-wing propaganda. And then we find out that it's not, and it's actually reality.
60 years later,
And like all the shit that they were blaming Trump for is actually the stuff that they were guilty of doing.
Of course.
Right? But it can be spun in any direction, and I think that's created a big problem, right?
But we've never had the media, the FBI, the CIA, the DOJ, everything backing, in bed with the president. That's always, those branches were always separated to run the government. They can't run the government all pulled in one behind Biden because it's just, you're seeing what we're getting. They're going after their political opponent. You know what I mean? It's election interference. But we've never, ever been in this position, ever.
Is there anybody else that would take over the ticket for Biden? Or is it Biden and Trump?
At this point, I think they made their bed. They have to sleep in it. Because Gavin Newsom screwed up and Michelle Obama said she doesn't want anything to do with it. That would be the only two that they'd probably put up against Trump that would ever have a, look at Gavin Newsom. He's good looking. He's Pelosi's nephew. He's come from a world of politics, background in politics. But what he's done to California has no merit. You can't run on that.
Yeah. Well, he's telling everybody they've got to wear their masks. And then he's caught at what is it? The French, the French Laundry or English. I can't think of the name right now, but that restaurant in Northern California.
It's the same thing. Do what I say, don't do what I do. And that's their moral. You know what I mean? How could these people were put in all, I tell my wife all the time, I don't know how they sleep at night. Honestly, I don't know how these people sleep at night. Look at California. What a shithole. Look at Boston, Chicago, all Democratic run shitholes. I mean, come on, you're supposed to be to serve and protect the American people. And here you are opening up the border. That should be treason. What he did there is treason.
I was talking to a friend of mine, and her and her husband are involved in some charities here locally, and to help with some of the immigration stuff. And she's like, Darik, you would never believe it, but there are 2 busfuls, full buses, 2 of them, that drop off immigrants from the border every 2 days in downtown Denver. These people have no money. They have no place to live. I go, how many people is that fit on 2 busfuls? She's like, it's about 150 people every 2 days. And there's zero plan for this.
They lie to us. They say we only have maybe 30,000 immigrants that were bused to Colorado. It's more like 60 to 80,000. And it's going to get really ugly here as soon as those welfare cards stop running out of cash. And you got all these different, Haitians, and they've come from a world of pain. And they're going to inflict it here on the American people. It's going to be chaos. We're already started seeing migrant crime tick up, but they report it because they don't, it's not good for publicity.
Yeah, it's not going to support their ticket.
And I watched the State of the Union to see if this rotting bag of oatmeal could put 2 sentences together. He was so freaking hyped up on something, dude, because you watch him out on the campaign trail now, he's back to Sleepy Joe. It's amazing that people can't see what's really, the man has dementia, Alzheimer's, he's got some, and that is, his family is propping him up there. It's elder abuse. But they have nobody else. And I think this time Trump is really going to have to slam him good. I mean, well above and beyond. And I think it's finally come to fruition with the American people that there is, what we had with Trump is better than what we have in Biden. Just the policies, all the stupid shit he's done. It's actually, I call it, my wife gets mad at me because it's Biden and his band of misfits. Everything he touches turns to shit. And, especially with the border, he opened up the border because no Americans are going to vote for him anymore because he has to import, all these people that, Biden let us in, Biden let us in. And now, what everything else is, women and men's sports, come on. Where's the common sense in that? Why do we cower to the 1%? Why? If you think about it, why? Because there's demonization there. These people, they don't.
Are you talking about like transgender?
Yeah.
Within sports?
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. All right. Start a different league for transgenders. Why mix them? Why take a woman's scholarship away and give it to a male? A male. I tell my wife all the time, if I was swimming against a male, I would just turn my back and walk away. If they all stick together, and that's what's happening now. They are all done with this stuff.
Well, that's the thing is, you're right. It's like we're going up against this small minority of people that have this particular outspoken, passionate belief. That's what's being used as propaganda with the American people. So we see it. And look, I don't care if you're black, white, gay, straight, transgender. To me, it doesn't matter who you are as long as you're not hurting other people. When it comes to sports, there is a biology component to it that tips the scales in an unfair direction, like with the Olympics, right? And, having somebody that is a biologically born female that is transgender, and so they have now maybe a sex change, male genitalia, that are now competing with men's sports. The reality is they're just not going to be able to compete at that level. And the opposite is also true. Putting a man that has had a sex change to become a female, and now they're competing with women, but biologically they're a man.
Yeah.
It's like, look, whatever floats your boat, as far as I'm concerned, I'm cool with whatever you want to do with your own body. But competition is something that is sacred, and you can't start mixing people that have an unfair advantage. Otherwise you have an outcome that's not authentic. And that's my opinion on it.
And I agree totally, because that should never have been. But why? But you got to ask yourself why. Because if you read Mao, the first thing you do is divide the people by color, race, and then you go by gender and everything else like that. And that's where we're going. You know what I mean? They're trying. Look at Palestine and Israel. You have the oppressor and you have the oppressee, right? Supposedly that Israel. So, but they both had the same opportunities where Palestinians were digging tunnels and Israel was building hospitals and schools and educating. And so they became the oppressor, supposedly, right? And our liberal arts schools and teach that this is wrong. How is it wrong? But then that's where you get the divide, the left and the right. Because people, if you tell them, this is wrong long enough, it says it only takes 2 generations to change the world. And they've done it with the schools. All these liberal colleges and everything, they were not teaching, they were evangelizing their beliefs on our kids. And that's where Nadine and I said, hey, we're taking you out of those classes. You don't need to know, how to put a condom on it, in 3rd grade. That's not what you're there for. You're there to learn the ABCs. You're not there to learn about your sexuality. As a parent, that's our job. And it's funny because our kids would go, we never took those classes. Your mom's like, you're damn right, because I took you out of those classes. Because if you're going to learn, you're not going to learn anything about sex but from us. Because that's our job as a parent. But nowadays, our job, people who send their kids to school, they're just giving them up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And they're kind of talking about whatever they want to talk about, right? Whatever they personally believe in, to make it more acceptable for children, children that haven't even gone through puberty yet, to start thinking about, well, gosh, maybe I do like boys.
And it's hard enough going through life right now.
Absolutely.
And you don't need to be putting that on a 5-year-old or, a 6-year-old telling, you could be a boy. No way. You know what I mean? That's absolute taboo right there. If you had a stranger come up to your kid and start talking to him about sex, he'd be arrested for pedophilia, right? But it's okay for a teacher to go, hey, you know what I mean? We're going to start you on puberty blockers and everything else like that. And we're not going to tell your parents. Bullshit. That's where they need to take it back.
And I think I think people are starting to remember that they have a voice And I think it's a shame because for so long, people were just silenced. They were canceled. They were afraid that anything they would talk about would either be censored or they'd be taken off the platform. It would jeopardize their income and that was really the issue, right? Because they're going, well, shit, if I talk about what I really believe in or think, then I'm at jeopardy of losing my income, which makes me more dependent on the federal government, and I'm not willing to take that risk. And so people just never talked about it. But dude, where do we go from here?
Look what Trudeau did in Canada with those truckers. He confiscated all their bank accounts, their trucks, and everything. And then New York said, hey, we're going to lodge a protest like that. Can you imagine our government stepping in and seizing all that? There would have been a freaking uprising right there because you don't pull that shit.
Absolutely.
Right? The first thing they went wrong with Canada is they disarmed the American people because they have no voice. Peace through strength, right? You take away their guns, you're their boss, right? And Biden's made that clear. You're going to need more than guns to come up against the government. You're going to need F-16s. You're going to need tanks. You're going to need bombs and stuff like that. That was a threat. But the only thing keeping the peace is knowing that we, the American people, believe in the First, and Second Amendment. We have the right to bear arms, and we will protect ourselves even against our own government. And they don't want to hear that because that'll start a civil war. Again, it happened years ago. It could happen again. But I don't know what's going to happen in 2024. I don't know what the left is cooking up. The ballot harvesting, the ballot stuffing. There was a great documentary.
It almost just, doesn't it kind of seem, like it just kind of feels like there's no challenge. Like from my perspective, it's like Trump is going to win. He has such a huge following and base, but it's almost like there's something up, right? Because it's like
they did it in 2020.
Like it's so clear right now that he's the front runner and has no opposition because nobody's gonna vote for Joe Biden after everything he's done for the last 4 years.
But there will be people voting for him.
Well, but not enough. I don't dead people, but not enough. I don't think enough to overthrow Trump's run for it. And so, but it's because of that I'm like, you're right. Like, what the fuck do they have cooking? What is going to happen? Because something's going to happen. It's going to be tumultuous. It's going to cause turmoil. It's going to cause an uprising, and it's going to make. They're going to do everything they possibly can to
relinquish that power.
Yeah, and that's why they keep hitting him with all these lawsuits, right?
And you don't think that's election interference?
Oh, totally.
But people are starting to, even the black and brown people are starting to say, "Hey, that's messed up, man. Trump is one of us now. He's got a mugshot." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I am totally amazed that now they're starting to wake up because. Now, all these inner cities, they just took those jobs away from the people eventually that would want to work and gave them to all these illegals. So now the black people are saying, whoa, that's ours. That's ours, and you gave it away just to get more Democratic voting. They're starting to wake up. So I believe that it's going to be definitely a lot different term this time, but I don't know. He might start World War III. There was no wars with Trump. They talked about him being Putin's puppet. My motto is, you keep your friends close, you keep your enemies closer. And that was, I believe, was Trump's motto too. Putin, Xi Jinping, South Korea, Kim Jong-un. They were busting his freaking chops because he met with these people.
It's like with everything. Right? Anything he did, they would bust his chops.
Oh, if this guy was,
They're going to continue to do it. But, look, I think there's a bigger thing here, okay? And that is that people need to stop. Once everybody realizes that the president isn't going to save them, that's a good day for humanity, right? Because there's only so much that the president can do to make your life better. So how do we take our own power back as American people? How do we do things that can help us to become a better version of ourselves so that we have the ability to think clearly, to have more energy, to make more money, and to be a contributing member of society? Because it's when we have the ability to advance our own agenda, that is what will start to solve the problem, because we will then not need to rely on anybody else. As soon as we say, hey, listen, we got to get, I don't care who it is, Trump, Biden, anybody, in or out of the office, we're really giving away our personal power. And I think it's time we got to take it back.
Peace through strength.
Yeah.
We've always been the world police, but the last, 3.5 years has been unbelievable. He's made so many mistakes. I mean, you ask people, what has Biden done? And nobody has a clue, except interfere in our bringing up of our kids, in sports and everything else like that. There's nothing. I love talking to liberals. So I was like, okay, plead your case. Right away, they get freaking angst. And they get angry because that's all they got. They'd rather yell and scream at you. You're a racist, you're a bigot, you're a homophobe. I am the most hated person in the world right now because I'm a white male. I'm a Christian. Now they're labeling us as a Christian nationalist for some reason. It's new terminology separating us from Christians so they could, demoralize us. My sister lives with her wife for the last 38 years. So where am I a homophobe? I have a Vietnamese son-in-law. Where am I a racist? My friends, my neighbors are black. I get along great with everybody. Who are you to judge me? Who are you to label me? But that's what they do. They have to label you to make themselves feel inferior to you, above you. And I believe with this Democratic Party, what they have done to the American people is separate us and turn us against each other. But the day we all see that and come together, the Democratic Party is done. And that's where I believe America's at right now. What's wrong with being self-sufficient? What's wrong with being energy dominant? What's wrong with doing the right thing? These people they hate America for some reason. And I'd like to know why. You can't get a straight answer out of them, but they hate this country so much. Why? Because we grow, we have morals, we have values, we have convictions. All they care about is money. Money is the root to all evil with these people. Like I talked to you a couple of weeks ago, it's generational money. They got more money than they know what to do with, but now they pass it down, so they'll be remembered through their legacy. Oh, Grandpa Biden, we have all this mansions and everything because of Lindsey Graham, all these people. 60% of the people in power are multi-millionaires. And all you have to do is ask them, how did you get that money? Oh, right away, you just started a fight. Because they could have not got that money working on a $200,000 salary as a congressman or anything else like that. It's all lobbyists. It's all foreign money. I'm just amazed that Biden and Hunter and Joe, his other brother, how much money they accumulated by peddling, influencing, and covered it up. Biden got hit with a hot mic saying, oh, it'll take him 10 years to find the money. Don't worry about it. It didn't take us 10 years to find the money, Joe. It just took perseverance and investigation. Now that you didn't have the House, we Jim Jordan, everything. They found it all. But now it's just a matter of convincing that the American people that he's capable of doing something like that. The laptop, Russian disinformation. They lie so much. And people are perfectly comfortable. Look at Bill Clinton. What he did in the Oval Office. I don't even call it the Oval Office. For what he did, Monica Lewinsky, all those girls, he sexually harassed all of them. And that was our president of the United States. He's the biggest sleazeball hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein. But people are okay with that because they have no morals. It's okay. Pedophiles, you can't even, minor attracted person, my ass. That's a pedophile. Anybody who thinks a 6-year-old, 5-year-old, oh, it's disgusting. You have to be somewhat demented. You have to admit, and I always love my father-in-law. He's like, he had the most, come back to this. He's like, Mike, these people are like lemons. You know the lemon law for a car? Mm-hmm. You bring it back once, they fix it, supposedly. You bring it back twice, supposedly they fix it. They bring it back third time, they freaking squash the car and move on.
Yeah.
And he used to say, people are like lemons, Mike. But that, back in the day, there was none of this sugarcoating anything. They had insane asylums for a reason, because people actually are touched and they needed help. And that's, we've closed that all down and put them out on the street to be with the American people. There's no help. There's no hope. Instead of sending billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine and Israel, we should be helping people with mental disabilities. Because people are touched. People can't cope with reality. And there needs to be a safe place for them where they can live out their lives in their delusional worlds of their perception of reality. And that,
What do you say to the person that's listening right now that's really struggling, or that has lost hope? Maybe they're in depression and they're looking at what's going on with the world, going,
I can't survive in it. Yeah.
I'm broke. I don't have any money. Inflation's out of control. There's all this chaos with our society. It's bleeding into other countries. And they're just lost. What would you say to somebody like that needs a little hope, that needs a little wisdom?
Reach out. There are plenty of organizations that are, willing to help you. You don't need to go out there and jump off a bridge. Life can never be that bad that you even would consider taking your own life, because there are people that love you and want to help you. You're not alone in this world. There are a lot of good people out there. Go to your church, ask for help. They will not turn you away, regardless of your religion or your beliefs. There's always people out there willing to help you. If you're at your wit's end, you have to be the one to ask for help. Nobody. My brother-in-law was an alcoholic since he was 9. After his mother passed away, he went into this deep, dark depression. The demons grabbed him. And at 42 years old, he was gone. But we try to help him so much. You can't help somebody unless they want to help themselves. Because they live in that world of everybody else. Nobody gives a shit. That's not true. There are people out there that give a shit.
Yeah, I agree, man. And I know you're one of them, and I appreciate you coming on today, brother. It's always great to see you and appreciate the conversation.
Yeah,
man.
it's been interesting. I was a little apprehensive about doing this because somebody would, they would consider me far right, but I'm not. You know what I mean? I just want to do what's right. Self-preservation is number one. The world needs to get back. We need peace through strength. We are, if we're going to act like the world police, we need to be the world police. You know what I mean? We need to put Iran in their place. We need, I bet you nobody has even sat down and talked to Putin except Tucker Carlson. You know what I mean? And Putin said this could have all been, if Trump was in office, this would have never happened because Trump would have had the conversation. Right now, we should be putting nukes in Taiwan. Because peace through strength. China's going to take Taiwan here soon. And there ain't going to be a freaking thing Joe Biden's going to do about it.
Yeah.
Except cry. And then we're going to get ourselves into another conflict. We need to shut Iran down with the Houthis and everybody else like that. Peace through strength.
Yeah.
And that's the only way we're going to bring America back. We're going to be energy independent. We're going to stop all this nonsense of men and women's sports and vice versa. We're going to start letting parents teach their kids right from wrong instead of thinking the government is the answer to teach their kids, because it's definitely not. And that, and that's basically what we need to do.
Dude, you should be on Trump's cabinet, man. Buddy, thanks for coming on, man.
No problem.
I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, it was good. I was a little, like
We'll
I said,
do
I
it
was
again.
Every time that I see a limit, what? I push right past it. Don't care if you got here first, the one to win is the last one standing. Say my life is like luck, nah, I had to plan it. The way I work is out of this earth. I can feel the momentum. Need it all, no fractions. Dream it, then I gotta have it in the booth like Tom Cruise. Hold